everyone, it is Tanya. Welcome back to the channel, or welcome if you are new here. Today I'm back with another speed build, and we are creating a realistic house in The Sims. Like a realistic small family home that you've probably seen in real life a million times. It's 1 story, 2 bedrooms, and it's only using the Sims 4 base game. It had been a little while since I had created anything just using base game, and I always find it really fun to do, and it's definitely more accessible as well. So I really hope you will enjoy this one. If you do and you'd like to download it, it will be available on the Sims 4 gallery. You can find it under my EA ID, which is Gryphi, Gryphi. You could also find it under the hashtag Gryphi, and that information will be in the description down below as well. So going into this build, I had a very vague idea of the shape that I wanted, which is that I wanted the porch to be sort of under the pitched roof where it's covering partially one side, and then you can see in the front it's like a larger roof that's half over the house and half over the porch. I wanted that, and I also wanted like a bay window. So those are the 2 things I kept in mind, as well as it being a 1-story home and only using base game. And I also knew I wanted it to be at least 2 bedrooms, which is what it ended up being. And I kind of figured out the floor plan as I was building the outside a little bit. You'll see that I pop inside to figure that out at some point and end up adjusting to make it a little bit bigger so I could fit in all the rooms that I wanted. But right now I'm just picking out some windows on the front. I did end up using these ones that we got in an update earlier this year. I thought that they looked really nice, and this is where I ended up trying to figure out part of the floor plan so we could finish the exterior without having to make changes way later. I thought it was a smart idea. I don't always do this, but with smaller homes I think it's very helpful so that you're not trying to adjust the exterior later on. So I pulled out this section here to be the primary bedroom, and then I am adding in another room here, and the bathroom actually ends up being right over in front of where I originally thought a door to the back porch would go, but I decided to put that on the side instead. It worked a lot better that way. And then we have a living room and a hallway, as well as an entry room. And I think this floor plan just worked very nicely. I was quite pleased with it. I am going to be using a different door for the back porch though, and the yard ends up having like a few activities in it later on, and it is up on a higher terrain. I did play with terrain manipulation in this build. Nothing too extensive. I just wanted to have that like step up in the front of the house. I did also change the color of this quite a few times. It's beige, it's blue. I think it goes back to beige in like different shades, and I go between red brick and a gray brick, and in the end the house is more of a beige color and then accented with lots of purple colors, and I think it is so pretty. So I'm glad that I kept messing with it. Not that it looks bad now. I'm okay with the blue in the brick, but I just really love the final color scheme. But still fiddling with the colors here of the windows, and also placing down some flower boxes, which I'm actually going to change out a little bit later for some debug ones that come in purple, which are so pretty. And I also rearranged how I have the steps on the front of the build. I currently have them going down to the side and then forward, but I'm actually going to change it so it's a little bit tighter to the house, and then there's a longer path. So I'm experimenting with that now, and I think it works out a lot better. You'll see here momentarily. I make the brick go all the way up to the house, and I will be also adding a fence over here so that it feels a little bit more safe and it feels more intentional and like it was planned to be that way, even though I didn't really have a plan exactly on how I was going to have the steps work. I am glad that I fiddled with it. I also ended up adding a half wall over here to act as a planter. So I'm placing down some green tile in here, and then a bunch of these debug bushes that I actually scale and lower with the tool mod to make sure they're not clipping into the house. And then I decided to actually have a different pathway leading to the front. Instead of having it be brick, I thought it made more sense for it to be sort of a sidewalk type of material. And then I'm starting to work on landscaping a little bit more here with these trees, and also changing to the beige color that I'm going to have in the end. I know it's kind of a boring color, but I think it worked so nicely with the landscaping I'm going to be doing, because I do get the purple flower boxes and there ends up being purple hydrangeas outside as well. I tried red before I got to that though, but I am so glad that I remembered the purple ones existed. And then I also grabbed a couple of these little like planters for your Sims to actually grow some functional plants in. But here are those flower boxes I had mentioned. They are so cute. I really wish they weren't in debug. They were in the regular catalog. And in general, I feel like it'd be nice to get more of these in the game. We occasionally do, but I always want more of them. And Honestly, just like a landscaping or exterior of our houses like kit or something would be so nice to have in the game. I would love that. Speaking of which, I believe I saw there was a leak that we might be getting more kits this month, which wasn't on the roadmap, but it hasn't been announced yet. But regardless, if we did get kits, what would you like to see next? I feel like we have this conversation all the time because they're constantly releasing kits, and I guess I kind of just said what I wanted, which is landscaping items and flower boxes and stuff. I think that would be really cool, but I'm not really sure what else, because it's kind of hard to imagine what the different things they might create are. I guess it could be more creator kits, which would be really cool because those have been amazing. And if it's the creator kits that are made by custom content creators instead of the ones that are made by EA working with a creator, I could see maybe that having a quicker turnaround. Regardless, I'm interested to see what they're going to be and if this is confirmed sometime soon. But let me know what you're thinking about future kits in the game. Back to the build, I am working on creating a fenced-in backyard. I had to adjust the terrain a little bit so the fence would go straight across instead of kind of morphing to the terrain and going up and down. I wanted it to be very level. Sometimes I don't do that, but I thought that made the most sense for this, and I added a little bit of landscaping in the back with the same flowers I had out front. And I will be continuing that when I actually go to decorate the backyard, which I'm pretty sure I don't do until I finish the entire interior. And we are starting with the kitchen, which is no surprise. That's pretty much what I always do. I am using this beautiful kitchen set we got earlier in the year with the base game update. I love it so much. And I end up actually moving the fridge to the other side of the room. And I basically just swapped where the fridge and the stove were. I thought it made a little bit more sense so we weren't blocking the window with that tall cabinet, but I really wanted that on the other side of the fridge as sort of like a pantry. And then over here, I got a couple of decorations on the counters, a like freshly baked loaf of bread and this beautiful flower vase that is purple. I tried to bring in some purple on the inside of this build as well, since I had that in the landscaping outside, and it was very difficult as usual because there's not a lot of purple in this game, especially in the base game. And then I just extended the counters over one more tile as it felt like it needed a little bit more over there. And then there isn't a formal dining room in this house, but I do have a dining area in the kitchen here, and so I just have a larger round table with 4 chairs, and then I'm figuring out some flowers to go on there. And then I changed the color of these curtains a bunch of times through the process of this build. They start pink, they end up being white with this purple wallpaper, and then towards the end of the build I'm going to be changing them back to be like a blue and a green swatch that I end up using in the other room. But first we are moving on into the bathroom where I have a shower tub combo, and I cut out this corner section to make everything fit a little bit better. And I will be placing a door into that from the main entrance hallway, so it can be sort of like a coat closet. It's not functional, but I thought it was a cute idea, a nice way to use that space. And then I'm just cluttering up the counter here to make the space feel lived in, so we have some towels and toothbrushes and soap and all of that. And I actually also will be changing the tile in here, but I don't think I do it while we're working on this room. I come back to it while I'm working on a different space to change the tile to be like a beige one instead, which I really liked. But moving on into the living room now, this is where I was like, okay, I really want to use the purple swatch on this rug because I'm not sure if I've ever used it before, and I decided since I was going for the purple accents in this home that I was going to try it, and I'm glad that I did. It just took me a little while to figure out how I wanted to match it with everything else. I tried to bring in these blue curtains to like as a nod to the little bit of blue in the border on the rug, but I thought it was a little bit too vibrant, so I don't end up keeping those, and I bring back in the same ones that I have in the kitchen in a white swatch. And at this point you can see I changed the wallpaper and the tile in the bathroom as well. I decided this paneling in here would be really pretty, and I was actually pretty pleased with that. I thought I was going to have it everywhere in the house, but I didn't end up keeping it everywhere. I think it's just in this room and maybe the hallway, but it might just be this room. And then I'm just picking out a chair for the corner and a coffee table, and a couple of these things do change colors, and I will be also adding some pillows onto the sofas, as I just feel like it helps to customize them so much more, especially because these are, at least the couch is a really boxy couch, and so trying to make it look a little bit more comfortable I thought was a good idea. And then just picking out some purple flowers to put on the coffee table, and then I filtered by everything purple in the game just to see what other items I could grab. that I might use throughout the build. So there are some flowers on top of the fireplace, and I also had enough space to put a desk in here so your Sims will have a computer to use, and I placed a corkboard above that so if they want to like get a pen pal and collect postcards, that is an option. I don't usually have my Sims actually go through the gameplay of that, but I do really like placing down the postcards in my builds, so a lot of times I'll just grab the corkboard and go into debug and get those. I just think it's a cute addition and looks a little bit more lived in having things on your corkboard. But anyway, this is the hallway. I'm using the same end table or console table that I used in the living room and just placing a plant up on top of that. It's not one that is meant to go on a surface. It's meant to be a floor plant. So I raised it up using the 9 and 0 keys, and then just got a couple of other like decorations out here. There's a little framed photo and some books and a lamp. And of course, not temperature controls, we don't have those in base game, but I did get the burglar alarm and the fire alarm in the front hallway. And then this little hallway that leads you to the bathroom and the 2 bedrooms ends up being very simply decorated. It just has a long runner rug, a bookcase, I believe a plant and a lamp, and then a couple of paintings on one of the walls, which are actually going to be like portraits that are in base game of a variety of Sims. So I just have 2 of those out here. I thought it was kind of cute. And then we are moving on into the kids' room, which is actually going to be for a toddler. I feel like when I decorate kids' rooms, it's either for kids, teens, or infants. So I thought today it would be nice to decorate for a toddler, and I went with like a green and purple and blue color scheme, which I thought was quite fun. Using this toddler bed that came with the infants update a couple of years ago now. And just trying to lean into those colors. I really like the floral wallpaper in here in this green swatch. I think it's adorable. And the purple bunny, I don't know, just some of the items that I don't get to use these swatches of as often. But I also really was excited to use the little fox lamp. Anytime I build like a little kid's room, I have to use that. It is so cute. And then I got some of these square paintings up above the bed, the elephant and the dinosaur, the bunny, the ladybug. I just think they're really cute, and I got them in a variety of colors. Since not all of the mattings match, I just thought it would be fun to mix and match them there. And then there's just a little wardrobe over here, as well as a height chart. And then we'll be moving into the final room, which is the primary bedroom, where I changed the color of this bed a few different times, but I really leaned into like blue and beige. There's a lot of that in the base game, so and that's what I ended up going with. I used this rug here, which is one of my favorite base game rugs. I think it's quite nice. I just scaled it down with tulle. And then I thought I was going to use these bedside tables, but once I picked out the closet in this space, I decided to get the matching ones for that. And those end up being like more of a modern looking bedside table, which is a little bit different than the bed, but I like mixing and matching styles in the game. I think it looks a little bit more realistic that way. So just swapping those out and matching the wood tone on the bed to them, since it was a little bit more of a darker wood tone at this point. And then just cluttering up the bedside tables with like a clock, a plant, some books, some pretty simple decorations, and I also got a full-length mirror in here. And then we are heading outside to finalize our landscaping and put a couple of activities and decorations in the backyard. So I got a couple of planters out here. There's some monkey bars for when the kid grows up, and I also got a telescope. But that is pretty much it for this build. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure you give this video a big thumbs up. You can also subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more, and click that bell to be notified when I upload. And a massive thank you to my YouTube members for your continued support. If you'd like to become a member yourself, you can click the join button below the video or the link in the description. Enjoy the screenshots, and I will see you all soon. Bye everyone.